All right. Doug or Mary, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Perfect. Thank you. So can you see my screen, SAP Data Integration? Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay. So um, basically, Attunity is it's been defined as the leader in data integration because we can move data from heterogeneous sources and deliver it in real time to streaming, cloud platforms, data warehouse, and data lakes. Okay. Sorry about that. And we have basically three main differentiators with our platform. The first one is we are the leader in CDC. Okay. As a matter of fact, Attunity is one of the precursors in the CDC technology, and we have one of the largest, or perhaps the largest comprehensive supportability matrix in the market. The second one is we are the leader in cloud integration. Okay. If you have a relationship with AWS, Azure, or Google, you can use our technology and benefit from our integration. It's not that we can write data in their clouds. Is that we are integrated with all their functionality that is delivered by them. Just as an example, we have migrated more than 100,000 databases to their clouds. We are also the leader in easy of use and automation. For example, when you're building a data warehouse, we can read the entity relationship diagram. We can create the structure of an ODS. Then we can create the structure of a data warehouse, the data mart. We can do an automatic definition of the endpoints, the source and the target. We can do the automatic instantiation. We can do the transition automatically too from batch processing to CDC mode. So that helps in making the time to market many times faster than with traditional tools. Well, we're going to talk about our platform. Basically, in the left, we can see relational databases. We can see data warehouse, files, mainframe, software as a service like Salesforce, applications that are in the cloud, and SAP. And we're going to be focusing today in SAP because, as everybody knows, it's a very complex data model with more than 100,000 data tables. And also, most of those tables have technical information. Attunity, what it's going to be doing is to simplify the extraction of business information. Okay, so what we call swim lanes or different offerings are the following. Commit. We can move data from any source in the left to any database like Oracle, SQL Server, Postgre, etc., etc. This is a very important business line for us. We have thousands of customers in this part. The second swim lane, as we call it, would be the model. And instead of a database, we're going to be talking here about data warehouses like Snowflake, Redshift in AWS, Azure, BigQuery in Google, etc., etc. And the third one would be what we call conform. Okay, we're not talking about data warehouses, now we're talking about data lakes. And the same automation that I spoke about data warehouse is going to be present in data lakes too. Okay, so these are the main swim lanes, the main benefits that our company can have with one single platform, right? One platform to solve any data integration need. Okay, in this slide, you can see the sources and targets really fast because probably Doug and Mary will show a little bit more about this. And pretty much that was a brief introduction that I wanted to show you with this one last slide with all the services, the cloud services supported by Attunity at this moment. So thank you very much. And I'm going to switch now the presenter to Doug.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos.
You're very welcome, Doug. As I said, Doug is our senior solution consultant and will continue with this presentation. Please go ahead, Doug.
Yes, perfect. I will, let me share my screen.
We can see it now, Doug.
You're able to see my screen? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, great. So as Juan Carlos was mentioning, right, the Attunity platform, just a quick additional overview on what that is composed of. The Attunity platform has the overarching global management control that we call Attunity Enterprise Manager, the world-class change data capture and change data management software called Attunity Replicate to be able to accomplish all of our universal data integration. We have Attunity Gold Client that is able to do data acquisition from SAP. Then we have our weaving software or compose software that we call that is able to do automated ETL and modeling for building out data lakes and data warehouses. And we have the ability to visualize all this information as this overarching platform, whether it's on-premises or cloud. Right? As Juan Carlos showed briefly, the matrix of all the different endpoints that we have a very wide variety of sources that we support, whether they're on-premise database systems, whether they're cloud systems, whether they're mainframes, SAP, flat files, software as a service. We're able to pull all of these information and deliver them to the target locations. So this means that you can do things like your lift and shift if you need to have a cloud-first strategy. If you have multiple data centers, private data centers, and you want to just replicate from a relational system to another relational system, you're able to do that. So you have all this different variety that you're able to do, right? So you're able to take this information, store this in memory as this is moving for either batch loads or incremental changes or the CDC process, and be able to filter this and transform this data set so that you can deliver it to your landing stage for a data warehouse or data lake, or deliver it to another relational database system. And all of this is happening in memory and moving it over from one source to a destination. Right? So what are we moving? Really quick. We are able to move the target schema. So this means that if you have a relational system, you can connect it and it'll create that information. So if it'll add tables or it'll add columns, we're able to map the data types heterogeneously. So this means that if you have particular things like an SAP, for instance, that have certain data types that don't necessarily map, we're able to do that and do that conversion. You know, as I mentioned, the batch to CDC transition, so that way you have that always on or always moving of your data as it changes. DDL propagation, so if you update columns, if you want to change the data type of a column, as long as though you're not violating any rules from your source database, you're able to perform those on the target database and have Attunity Replicate be able to do that for you. Propagate as well, filtering details. So if you needed to remove certain sets of data or certain columns, you are able to do that. If you need to transform, so for example, I want to add a context column because I'm dropping things off in ADLS, or I'm building out a data warehouse in Snowflake, I can do that and be able to do that efficiently and have a whole series of functions and a series of operators that I can apply to that data set, right? So as I mentioned, the overarching architecture is this whole ability to have a connected system between one data center or on-premise to the cloud and be able to deliver that data in a very fast manner. So we're able to actually compress the data in transmission and encrypt that data so that you can deliver it securely and quickly between on-premise to the cloud. Right, so a few highlights on the Attunity Replicate before I hand it off to Mary to actually talk about the demo or show the demo is Attunity Replicate is very easy, right? Very configurable, as we will see in the UI. The CDC is in place, right? It's very quick, very efficient, no downtime. There are no agents to install on the target endpoints or sources. Mary will discuss one particular client that needs to live on the SAP. It is heterogeneous, so we support a wide variety of data types and sources and targets. We are high performance, so as I mentioned, we do all of our CDC process in memory as much as possible, depending on the hardware that you provide. We have security in mind, so we have SSL capability in encrypting our data so we can securely move that information. We do scale, so we do have high availability and disaster recovery capabilities, and we're very agile because you're able to quickly adjust your sources and targets and transformations in a few minutes and not days, right? So there's no code needed to be able to do all of this processing. So now more focused on what the demonstration will entail. So we're going to be pulling data from SAP. Some of the prerequisites for the Attunity Replicate to be able to pull information from SAP, we support the SAP ERP ECC 6.0, all levels. We also support ECC 5.0 and 4.7 and 4.6. If you have databases, we do support backend Oracle, SQL Server, and DB2 systems. Now, here's a little bit of additional matrix on what we currently support, and we are always expanding what we support within SAP. All right, so now it is time for the demonstration. So Mary, I will pass it over to you.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Sorry. I'm clicking on the screen sharing and it's not letting me.
Okay.
Ah, there we go.
We can see your screen.
And which screen are you looking at? The one with Replicate?
No, the one that says HTC POC planning call.
How about that?
Now we can see Replicate.
Okay. All right, I just changed it. All right, so what you're looking at right now is the actual Replicate interface. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So the first thing I wanted to show you before I got into Replicate is the SAP GUI that Doug mentioned just a moment ago. We do install a small binary transport onto the SAP system, not to your database, that just simply allows you to have a interface into the ABAP GUI so that you can customize it for your implementation of SAP. We also do support S/4HANA as a source. We support ECC running on HANA. My demo today is ECC running on Oracle, but we support HANA with ECC as well as S/4HANA running on the HANA database. But at any rate, you will still have this interface, which will come to you out of the box based on SAP business groups and how SAP groups their data in order to utilize the SAP system. So this should look familiar to you. What we do here then is take a vanilla SAP implementation and allow you to customize it for your particular environment. For example, if you wanted to come to the Finance Master, when you click on tables here, what you see is a list of the tables that we know are a part of doing a full analytic investigation on your finance master. If you were to look at materials master, the same thing. You'll see the tables for material master, however many of them there might be. This is the area which you would add Z or Y tables if you needed to. You would click this little pencil edit over there and press the plus to add a new table for your particular deployment, or to, if you can, even remove a table if you choose not to have a table that we selected as part of one of these. If you'd like, you can also drill into an individual table and either keep or remove a column within that table. So using this interface, you customize the SAP GUI to your deployment of SAP for Replicate to then use. So going back to the Replicate software, this is the GUI. It is the same regardless of whether you're moving data from SAP to Snowflake, which happens to be what I'm going to be doing in this demo, or SAP into any other cloud configuration. Juan Carlos showed you the cloud objects that we write into, but also to any relational database, data warehouse, Hadoop platform, etc. We have at least 40 plus different sources, and we're growing that all the time. So this is the Replicate interface. Just quickly to show you, I'm going to be replicating into Snowflake into a database called demo_DB. And as you can see right now, there are no tables in this database. So we're going to do that with Replicate. The first thing we're going to do, I wanted to show you your endpoint connections. So in this case, these are all the sources and targets that we support. In this case, I'm going to be going from source SAP ECC. So if I click on this, you'll see the information you need to key or enter to provide a connection to the SAP. Whether you've got the information, spread around different nodes or not, server name, client, username, password, and then the backend database. And you can browse to this, and in this case, you'll see that it's Oracle relational for SAP. If I come up here, you'll also see the Oracle database, and this is the information in order to connect to Oracle. So for SAP, you'd be setting up 2 connections, one for the database itself. In this case, up here, you can see there's a HANA database I have set up, but we're going to be using Oracle. And then the other to the SAP instance that sits on top of the database that you'll be using. New endpoint connections would be, you radio button here, and you would see drop downs for all of the different sources and targets that we support. For this demo, I'm also going to be using the Snowflake target. So you'll note that we have Snowflake here. We support either AWS or Azure for the data storage. In this case, I'm using Azure Blob Storage, but it could just as easily be AWS S3 if you needed. You can test your connections from within Replicate to make sure that you're actually being able to read from or write to the endpoint that you've set up. An endpoint for us is merely a source or a target connection. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just create a task. So the interface is the same, as I said, for any of those endpoints you saw on my list, whether they be Oracle or SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, et cetera, to the vast list of targets. So I'm going to create a new task, and I'm going to call this task SAP to Snowflake for ease of use. We're going to create a full load task. These are buttons here. We can do a full load task, which you could also do, or a full load task with CDC, or a full load task with CDC plus store changes in an auto table. This is mostly used when your target is going to be Kafka or Hadoop or ADLS or S3, where you're not writing into a relational database but into a file system. so that you would use store changes. When I click OK here, Replicate is going to ask me to decide what I want for my sources and targets. So on source here, I'm going to use the SAP running on ECC here. And then on the target side, I'm going to use Snowflake. So it's just as easy as dragging and dropping. I've written no code. With table selection then, next option, you click table selection, and you'll note that these are your business groups from the SAP GUI that I showed you in the beginning. So when we drop down here, you see your finance master. You're going to see your materials master that I clicked on. I'm going to be using a small little database that I have set up called ZR4S Demo. And when I click on that and search, it will bring me all of the tables that are within that database. The wildcard allows you to search and get more zoned in. If you have thousands of tables, this will allow you to pick the tables that you need. You can also select tables from more than one business group for a single task. In this case, I'm just going to select two tables, a pool table and a transparent table. For us to use just for the speed for demo. We click OK, or the add here. This works similar to Windows. When we click OK, then you'll see that you've been able to add these tables. You could, if you wanted, add global transformation to the tables. So if we added a global transformation, for example, for adding a column for the insert date for every table on the target, so that you know when every row in the Snowflake target was inserted, you can do that. I'm not going to actually do this for all the schema within the task, all the tables within the task. We would create then like a date, give it a date, time, data type, and then what do we want to put in here? So you've got your headers. We could select a timestamp and be good to go, and Replicate would then add a column to every table for the date. You can also do a transformation by table. So if we came in here to VBAC, we had the ability to look at, here's your source table, here's the target. You can change the value of the target by clicking in a function. You can change the data type, you can change the table name, you can even change the primary key value if you want to. You can delete columns if you'd like. If it's a PII column, maybe the time, you can delete that, or you can add columns. And the columns can be based on a function that you define, or maybe even a concatenation of other columns. You can filter here. Filtering allows you to, on a date or other columns, to say, I only want to bring over data within a specific range. Say everything greater than 2001. If you've got many years of data, you can use this filter to determine what data you're going to copy over. The one thing to mention with SAP as a source, that in the VBAC table in particular, sorry, I didn't mean to close that, but if we come down here to transform, you'll see that VBAC's got a number of columns in it that begin with /. A lot of our current data type targets will not accept a /. So you could use the global transformation to create a function to strip out those leading /s and replace any others with underscores. So I'm not going to do that. At this point, I've selected my source, I've selected my target, I've selected tables, and I can run. I'm going to come over here to the monitor mode just so you can see this. It happens pretty quickly. When I click on run here, Replicate is going to say this source, this target, these tables, any transformations that you're using, and it's building the metadata for the replication task. And then it will begin to replicate the data. So it's queuing up here. You'll see it loading. It happens pretty quickly. There's metrics below, like progress bar, that are contextually relevant to what you're moving. And then when you click completed, it'll show you how much data it moved, how long it took, etc. So you can click on these bars as data is moving. So at this time, this job is running. And if you'll note, if we look at tasks here, you'll see this SAP to Snowflake job is running with a green arrow indicating this. So any transaction now that hits the Oracle database will automatically be picked up and moved to your target. So the CDC job is just waiting for input. If we come back here to tables again, to Snowflake, and go back to the demo DB, now you'll see that we've got data, we've got the VBAC and the A004 data. If we click on VBAC and come over here to worksheets, I actually just did a quick little query here. So if I select everything from this A004 table and run, you'll see that the data for A004, which is a pool table in ECC, something you cannot query, you'll see that the data is now there. I think I have about 3 minutes left. Juan Carlos, did you want me to open this up for questions?
Yes, please go ahead with questions.
We have just a few minutes if you've got some questions. If not, I can very quickly come back here to this task, and we're in the monitor. I can pull up a little bulk load CDC for you, and I can, let's say I want to insert 100 records into the pool table and the transparent table. When I do that, this is just a bulk load for SAP. It's just a little widget. We go to change processing here, you'll see it's inserted 100 rows. If we come to updating 100 rows from the same tables, we can do that and execute, and you'll note now that it's updating and data is coming through as we're waiting for that to happen. And you'll see now the update of 100 rows. And we would see those rows in Snowflake. So that's what I have today.
We do have a couple questions here.
Okay.
So one question regarding the amount of data. How much data can I load? Let's say they would like a metric, let's say terabytes per second of information.
Replicate runs in memory. So it comes down to physics. You can, depending on how big your pipe is, from how big the network is, from your source to replicate, and then from replicate to your target. And then how big the replicate server itself is. So if you have a replicate server with 4 cores, it's going to run more slowly than a replicate server with 64 cores. I have a customer right now who's moving a 17 terabyte table, so we can get pretty big. And that's going to Azure DB right now.
Okay, perfect.
Anything else?
Question, yes. Do we have, see, what do I need to install in SAP to continue or to have this process happen? So I think this was in regards to installing the transport.
Yeah, it's a small binary transport, and all that transport does is allow you to see this and to customize a vanilla out-of-the-box SAP implementation of your modules to fit your ZMY tables and your customizations. That's it. You don't install anything else on source or target. Replicate is a middle-tier architecture.
Okay, perfect. The next question is, does it work for custom Z code SAP transactions?
Yes, that's one of the beauties here. This is where you would come in and you would add your Z tables to whatever business group you felt they belonged in. You could also create a new business group by creating up here, giving the new business group a name, and then adding tables to it by clicking on this plus arrow. You can add your Z tables to your configuration.
Okay. Does the tool have any kind of SAP certification?
Yes, we are fully certified by SAP to read from all of the ECC. We certified about a year ago to read from HANA with SAP as a application source, and also to read from just HANA with no SAP application. So we are fully certified by SAP.
Okay. Is it possible to use CDC for SAP HANA? Why would I choose Attunity versus HANA system replication?
Yes, you can use SAP you can use CDC with the HANA version. We have reverse engineered the ABAP code. We also are able to, either now or within the next week or so, to read the HANA logs. So we are fully compliant again with SAP. I think the Replicate is powerful not just because we can move data from SAP, but we can also, with the same user interface that I've been using here, we can also select any data type besides SAP, so that it's more heterogeneous, so you can move data from other applications that may sit on DB2 or SQL Server or Postgres or MySQL or what, and move those data into the same landing area as SAP to marry your data from SAP with other business sources. It's also faster.
If I already have an existing SAP ECC system, do I need any additional SAP tools to have it work with Replicate?
No. We read directly from the database that your ECC system sits on top of, whether that be Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, or HANA. We still have a lot of customers who are running on ECC, but they're running it on HANA, so they've only gone halfway through the upgrade.
Is it possible to have multiple targets?
Within yes. In fact, the customer who's moving 17 terabytes of data in their KONV table, they're taking a single SAP source system and replicating to 9 separate Azure DB databases based on a user ID within the SAP tables using the filter. Our software has a feature called log stream that allows you to, with change data capture, read once and write to multiple targets.
So in effect, converting SAP into a producer, a streaming producer.
I would say that's fair, yes.
Okay. Another question. Is it possible to use an external workload scheduler like Control-M or CA Workload or Apache Airflow to submit batch jobs?
Yes, with Replicate, we have it has an overlying overlying tool product that we call Enterprise Manager, and Enterprise Manager has full REST API capabilities, so that you can embed the Replicate flow within any higher level workflow engine that you have within your company.
Okay. Another question. In the case of an SAP fall down, the delta load will be preserved.
In the case of an SAP fall down.
Yes. So the prospect is probably asking, in the case of an SAP outage,
okay.
How are deltas handled?
So if we're reading directly from the database after the initial load, so if your target goes down, Replicate will continue to pull data from the logs of your source database, and it will cache it in memory and then onto the disk for the Replicate server until the target comes up. If it doesn't, Replicate will gracefully suspend the tasks that are writing to that target, and the entire time it's polling the target, asking the target if it's up Are you up? Are you up? And when replication or connectivity is resumed, Replicate will automatically unspool the memory and then the cache. And if it has suspended tasks, it will automatically restart those tasks and begin replicating from where it left off. We always keep track of the last record written and the last record read from the database based on the record number for that database. So the LSN for SQL Server or SCN for Oracle, etc.
Okay. And what will happen to the Attunity task if the connectivity to SAP is interrupted?
The SAP, the Replicate server will always keep track of the last record read. So it will not be able to continue caching data from the source because the source is down, but it knows the last record it read from the source. So it will also pull the source. Are you up? Are you up? Are you up? And as soon as the source connectivity is reestablished, Replicate will begin reading from the next subsequent record number from where it left off and continue processing automatically with no intervention.
Okay. A new question just came in. For huge tables, is it possible to split the data load?
Yes, it is. If you, one of the things that I showed you earlier in the VBAC or in here, I don't know if on Snowflake this is possible, but on a parallel load, I know most of the other Microsoft source or targets allow you to. If you click parallel load, you can either parallelize it by partitions that exist on the source table today, or you can specify data loads based on data values. So if you want to move 2001 as one partition, 2002, etc. So you would specify specific ways to segregate your data in order to write to target. And this this took a job with this company that I'm working with that ran for 22 hours down to 2 hours and 3 minutes by parallelizing the load of a large table.
Another question, is it possible to replicate to a S3 storage directly from S3?
Yes. Yes, we support S3 as a target. I think that if I show you on a new endpoint connection, we are source or target here. If you roll down, you'll see that Amazon S3 is a valid target for us. You need to provide the relevant information on how to handle the file, the change processing tables, etc., but it is a valid target, yes.
Is it possible to copy from one SAP and source to another SAP target?
No. SAP data has to be added through the application, as I'm sure most of you are familiar. We do have a product that's very well known within SAP that is also the SAP community, which is also certified by SAP called Gold Client, that allows you to take production data and move it to QA and dev in sub-segments, smaller sub-segments of data. It's a test data management tool that does allow you to move data from one SAP environment to another. It's probably the premier test data management tool on the market. In the US, it's in half of the Fortune 100 companies.
Okay, perfect. Is it possible to mask fields during the replicate process?
Yes. So as I showed you, when we came in here if we do a global transformation or even just a transformation, you can change the data that is going to appear in a particular column to be some type of a, if it's a U.S. Social Security number, instead of numbers to be XXX-XX-XXXXX. So yes, you can mask data. You can change the value of any column. You could also just as easily remove that column if you want. It's not intelligent masking, so my social security number is not always going to be a specific number in the target, but it does allow you to obfuscate data from the target. And you can further obfuscate it with Compose in order to make data that's landed consumable very quickly.
Wonderful, Mary. Well, thank you so much for all of those explanations. I believe.
Doug, I'd like to add that Gold Client is also the premier solution for GDPR in Europe.
Yes.
So we have full capabilities of data obfuscation. If you're interested, please send me an email and we'll be happy to schedule a demo for you too.
So there was one more question that just appeared, and I think that was it. So in regards to the S3 target endpoint, how does the tool control the registration of modifications on S3 side? In terms, I guess, how does it control or how does it keep up with updates?
So when we move data into the S3 file, if I come back here and select the S3 target, one of the things that you have to tell the system is how you want to handle change processing. So we move data, the initial data to S3 as a single file, all of the data from your source. But changes then will come over, Replicate will cache the changes through the CDC changes and will replicate them as a change file to S3. And it will do it based on one of two things. The first being the size. So you can replicate as soon as that file is, let's say, 100K or 1 gig or whatever works for you, or based on amount of time. So you can replicate the change file every 60 seconds. That will create, let's say the table is called employees. It will create an employees CT file in your target, and our customers then use Compose for data lakes to merge that CT file into the base table so that you can get a coherent view of all of your data without any coding.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mary. I think that answers all of the questions we have at the moment. I do not see any more. I'll go ahead, Juan Carlos.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Mary. Excellent demo, as always. We appreciate that. Doug, great managing the questions. So as I said, we recorded this session. It's going to be posted into Attunity for Latin America in LinkedIn, and later we'll be sending it an email to you with our link for downloading the recording. Should you need any clarification on the capabilities or understanding also the Gold Client proposition, please let me know. We're here to help. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Juan Carlos.
Bye, everybody.